The emergency lights in the Galactic Council chamber flashed red, casting strange shadows on the faces of the 200 different alien species gathered there. Another colony had gone silent. The fourth one this month. Kim Duha stood before the council, his plain black uniform standing out among the colorful robes of the alien representatives. As the chief security advisor, he had to deliver the bad news, even though his human presence made many of the aliens uncomfortable. "The Shadowhunter has struck again," he said, his voice steady. "Colony XB-249 is lost. No survivors." Murmurs filled the great chamber. A tall, blue-skinned alien rose from his seat, his feathers trembling with fear. "How can one creature destroy an entire colony? We had defense systems in place." Kim touched a button on his tablet, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. The footage was shaky, but clear enough to see a dark shape moving faster than any living thing should. Defense turrets exploded one after another. Buildings crumbled. The video ended with a glimpse of glowing red eyes before the camera went dead. "Our best weapons can't touch it," Kim explained. "It learns from every encounter, adapts to our strategies, and it's getting stronger." In the back of the chamber, Han Ta watched quietly from his observer's seat. He hadn't planned to be here today. As a cargo pilot, he usually stayed away from council business, but his ship needed repairs, and the public gallery had been open. The council leader, a crystalline being who spoke through light patterns, flashed in distress. "We've lost contact with 3 more colonies in the outer sectors. Our military forces are overwhelmed. This creature," the leader's lights dimmed. "This Shadowhunter is unlike anything we've seen in 10,000 years of space exploration." Han leaned forward slightly. Something about the way the creature moved in that video reminded him of Earth. Not of its cities or its people, but of its wilds, of the places where humans had learned to survive against all odds. "The Council hereby offers a reward," the leader announced, their crystals glowing brighter. 100 million credits and full citizenship rights to anyone who can stop this creature. We've tried military solutions. Now we're open to alternative approaches." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some representatives shouted offers to send their best hunters. Others demanded more defensive resources for their worlds. A few simply left, unwilling to risk their lives against something so deadly. Han stood up. He didn't shout or wave his arms. He simply walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the massive chamber. The aliens nearest to him moved away instinctively. Even after years of contact, most species were wary of humans. Something about Earth's gravity, they said, made its people move wrong. Too quick. Too strong. "I'll do it," Han said when he reached the speaker's platform. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The chamber went silent. Kim Duha stared at his fellow human with surprise. The council leader's crystals flickered rapidly, their species equivalent of raised eyebrows. "You?" asked a reptilian delegate. "You're just a cargo pilot. We need warriors, hunters." Han smiled slightly. "I am a cargo pilot. Now, but before that." He pulled up his sleeve, revealing a tattoo that made Kim Duha's eyes widen. It was the mark of Earth's Special Environmental Combat Unit, the people trained to fight in Earth's most dangerous regions. "I was born on what you call Deathworld 341, Han continued. "We humans had to learn to survive against predators that could tear through metal, storms that could level cities, and gravity that would crush most of you. Your Shadowhunter." He gestured at the frozen hologram. "It moves like something from home." "I believe," Han said carefully, "that sometimes it takes a predator to catch a predator. And whether you accept it or not, humans evolved as persistence predators on a world that tried to kill us every day." The leader's crystals flashed in what seemed like resignation. "Very well, Han Tai. We accept your offer. But know this, 27 of the galaxy's best hunters have already tried. None returned." Han nodded once. "I understand. I'll need access to the attack records and my ship repaired." He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. When I find it, I won't just try to kill it. First, I'm going to understand it. Because that's what humans do. We learn, we adapt, and we survive. As Han walked out of the chamber, the aliens whispered among themselves. Some laughed at the humans' confidence. Others wondered if they had just witnessed either the bravest or most foolish decision in galactic history. Only Kim Doo-ha smiled, remembering his own training on Earth. The Shadowhunter was about to learn why humans were classified as Deathworld species, and why that classification might have been an understatement. Han Tai sat in his ship's pilot seat, looking at old photos on his tablet. The images showed a younger version of himself standing in Earth's wilderness. Behind him rose mountains covered in snow, their peaks hidden in clouds. The gravity there was crushing by galactic standards, but to him, it felt like home. A soft beep from his computer brought him back to the present. "Display message," he said. Kim Doo-ha's face appeared on the screen. "I sent you the classified files about the Shadowhunter. But first, tell me something. Why did you really volunteer?" Han looked at another photo. This one showed him with his old military unit, standing in the Amazon rainforest. They were all covered in mud, wearing special cooling suits to survive the deadly heat. "Do you remember basic training?" Han asked. "The survival course." Kim nodded. 3 months in Earth's most dangerous regions. I almost died twice. "I was an instructor there," Han said. "For 5 years, I taught soldiers how to survive in places that could kill them in minutes. The Arctic, the deep ocean, the Australian outback." He paused. "But here's what the aliens don't understand about Earth. It wasn't just about surviving the environment. It was about the predators." The screen split to show footage of the Shadowhunter's attacks. Han watched carefully as the creature moved through alien cities, destroying everything in its path. "Look at how it hunts," Han said. "The way it circles its prey. The way it learns and adapts. Reminds me of something, doesn't it?" Kim's eyes widened. "A saltwater crocodile." "Exactly." Han pulled up an old Earth video. A massive crocodile, over 6 meters long, hunting in murky water. Humans learned to survive against predators like this. We didn't have claws or armor. We had something better. Our minds, Kim said, and our ability to keep going when others would give up. Han nodded. "The aliens think Earth made us strong because of its gravity. But they're wrong. Earth made us strong because it never let us rest. We always had to think, adapt, and overcome." He switched to another video from his training days. It showed a group of soldiers tracking a pack of wolves in the Siberian winter. The temperature was 50 degrees below zero, but they kept moving, kept thinking, kept adapting. "I volunteered because I saw something familiar in those attack videos. The Shadowhunter. It's not just killing. It's learning, testing, adapting, just like Earth's predators." Han smiled slightly. "But that's the thing about Earth. We weren't the strongest predators there. We were just the ones who never stopped learning." Kim was quiet for a moment. "The Council thinks you're going to try to fight it directly." "Of course they do. They don't understand how humans hunt." Han pulled up another file. Old cave paintings showing ancient humans hunting mammoths. "We didn't win by being stronger. We won by being smarter. By watching, learning, understanding. Like you did as an instructor. Every new group of students taught me something new," Han said. "About how people think under pressure. About how we adapt. About what makes humans different from every other species in the galaxy." He looked at one last photo. It showed him standing next to a huge metal container, a training simulator for Earth's special forces. "This is what the aliens never understood about us. We don't just survive our death world. We learn from it. We take those lessons, and we pass them on." Kim leaned forward. "And what lesson will you teach the Shadowhunter?" Han's expression turned serious. "That there's always a bigger predator, and sometimes The most dangerous hunter isn't the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest armor. It's the one who watches, waits, and learns. He closed the photos and opened the classified files. Now let's see what our friend has been up to. Every attack tells us something. Every move it makes shows us how it thinks. As Han began studying the files, he felt the old familiar feeling from his training days. The calm focus that came before a hunt. The Shadow Hunter was about to learn why humans were Earth's apex predators. Not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they never, ever stopped learning how to win. Kim's image flickered on the screen. Good hunting, instructor. Han nodded once and began his work. He had a predator to study, and like every good hunter from Earth, he would start by learning everything he could about his prey. The real hunt wouldn't begin until he understood exactly what he was dealing with. After all, that was the human way. Park Yuna stood in the ruins of Colony XB-249, her environmental suit beeping softly as it analyzed the air. Around her, buildings lay broken like crushed toys. But it wasn't the destruction that interested her, it was the pattern of it. "Look at these claw marks," she said into her recorder. "They're not random. Each strike hit a structural weakness. This creature isn't just strong, it's intelligent." A shadow fell across her work. She turned to find Han Ta standing there, his own environmental suit much simpler than hers. She had heard about the human cargo pilot who volunteered to hunt the Shadow Hunter. She hadn't expected him to show up at her research site. "You're the xenobiologist," he said. It wasn't a question. "And you're the human who thinks he can catch this thing." Yuna stood up, holding her scanner. "I study 15 attack sites now. No one has survived a direct encounter with the Shadow Hunter. No one." Han walked past her to examine the claw marks himself. "Tell me what you've learned." Yuna watched him curiously. Most hunters who had come before wanted to know about the creature's weaknesses, its physical traits. None had asked about her research. "It's evolving," she said. "Each attack shows new tactics. See these marks." She pointed to a series of holes in a metal wall. "First attack, it didn't know how to breach our strongest metals. By the third attack, it had learned exactly where to strike." Han nodded, touching the holes gently, like it's testing defenses. "Learning." "Exactly." Yuna felt a spark of excitement. Finally, someone who understood. "But there's more. Watch this." She projected a hologram showing security footage from different attacks. "See how it moves." First attacks, it was fast but simple. Direct charges, basic hunting patterns. But look at the later attacks. The hologram showed the Shadow Hunter moving with frightening intelligence, using cover, setting traps, even appearing to hurt its prey. "It's not just getting stronger," Han said quietly. "It's getting smarter." "Yes, that's why I have to warn you." Yuna turned off the hologram. "This isn't just another dangerous animal. Every hunter who tried to fight it made it stronger, smarter. They taught it about our weapons, our tactics. If you fail, I'll be teaching it about humans." Han finished. He didn't sound worried. Instead, he seemed interested. Yuna frowned. "You don't understand. I study creatures from 1,000 worlds. Nothing evolves this fast. Nothing learns this quickly. It's like it was designed to be the perfect predator." "No such thing as a perfect predator," Han said. He was examining the attack pattern now, walking the path the creature had taken. Every predator has limitations, needs, instincts they can't ignore. "How can you be so calm about this?" Yuna followed him, frustrated by his lack of fear. "I've seen what it does to its victims, even the strongest defense systems." "Tell me about Earth," Han interrupted. The question caught her off guard. "What?" "You're a xenobiologist. You study creatures from different worlds. Tell me about Earth's predators." Yuna blinked. "Earth? Your homeworld." She checked her data tablet. Deathworld 341. High gravity, extreme weather patterns, unusually high number of predatory species. She looked up at him. Actually, Earth is fascinating from a biological perspective. It's one of the few worlds where prey species developed intelligence as a primary survival trait. Because being strong wasn't enough, Han said. He had completed his circuit of the attack site and was now making notes on his own tablet. Being fast wasn't enough. Being armored wasn't enough. Earth's predators kept adapting, so prey had to get smarter. Suddenly, Yuna understood. That's why you're here. You think being from a death world gives you an advantage. No. Han smiled slightly. I'm here because I recognize what I'm seeing. This shadow hunter, it's not just hunting. It's learning, adapting, evolving. Just like Earth's predators did. Just like humans did. Yuna looked at her data with new eyes. You're going to try to outthink it. I'm going to try to understand it. That's what humans do best. Han started walking back to his ship. Thank you for the warning, Dr. Park. You've helped more than you know. Wait, Yuna called after him. What if you're wrong? What if it's smarter than you expect? Han turned back. Then I'll learn from it. And next time, I'll be smarter too. He paused. That's the thing about humans. We don't just learn to survive. We learn to win. As she watched him leave, Yuna added a new note to her research. Perhaps the most interesting species to study isn't the shadow hunter at all. It's the humans. The space station's emergency lights flashed red as Han Ta checked his equipment one last time. His tracking systems had finally picked up the shadow hunter's energy signature. It was here, on this empty mining station, probably looking for new prey. Are you sure about this? Park Yuna's voice came through his comm. She was watching from a safe distance, along with Kim Duha and several council observers. No, Han said honestly. But that's what makes it interesting. He touched the old Earth combat knife at his belt. Sometimes the oldest tools were the best ones. The station's corridors were dark and cold. Han's footsteps made no sound. His boots had special padding, something he'd learned from hunting Earth's big cats. His breathing was slow and controlled, just like he taught his students back on Earth. Then he heard it, a soft scraping sound, like metal on metal. Most people would have frozen in fear. Han smiled instead. First contact, he whispered into his comm. It's testing the station's structure, just like Dr. Park predicted. The scraping stopped. Han could feel something watching him. The hunters who died before had tried to hide from this feeling. But Han did something different. He stood in the open, making himself visible. A low growl echoed through the station. In the darkness ahead, two red eyes opened. They were bright like burning stars, and full of intelligence. Hello there, Han said calmly. I've been looking for you. The shadow hunter moved into the light. It was beautiful in a deadly way. Its black scales seemed to swallow the light. Its claws left marks in the metal floor without effort. It was bigger than the videos had shown. Each tooth was as long as Han's hand. But Han wasn't looking at these things. He was watching how it moved, how it thought, the way it tilted its head to study him. You're curious, he said. The others ran or attacked. But you know I'm different, don't you? The creature circled him slowly. Han turned with it, keeping his front facing the predator, just like facing a grizzly bear back home. Suddenly, it attacked. Its speed was incredible. But Han had spent his life training against Earth's fastest predators. He didn't try to outrun it. That would be impossible. Instead, he moved at the last possible second, letting it feel the wind of its own attack. The shadow hunter crashed into the wall behind him. But instead of being angry, it seemed interested. It turned back to Han with new focus in its eyes. That's right, Han said. I'm not running. I'm not attacking. I'm learning. Through his comm, he could hear the observers gasping. No one had survived this long and close contact with the creature. The shadow hunter attacked again, this time with a different pattern. Han moved again, but this time he wasn't quite fast enough. One claw caught his arm, leaving a long cut. Good hit, Han said, ignoring the pain. but now I know your reach." The creature pulled back, studying him with those burning eyes. It was learning too, adapting its attacks, just like Earth's predators would. "Han." Yuna's voice was worried. "Your suit sensors show injury. You need to withdraw." "No," Han said calmly. "This is exactly what I needed." First, lesson complete. The Shadow Hunter growled again, but it was different now. Less aggressive, more thoughtful. It had never met prey that stayed to study it back. "You're used to being the smartest hunter in the room," Han said to it. "But I come from a world where every day was a fight to survive, where we learned to think faster than the things trying to kill us." With shocking speed, the creature lunged one more time, but instead of attacking, it stopped just short of Han. Their eyes met, predator to predator. Then, like a shadow fading into darkness, it disappeared into the station's depths. "It's gone," Kim's voice came through the comm. "But why?" "It had you." Han touched his injured arm. "No, it didn't have me. It was testing me, learning about me." He smiled. "And I learned about it too. Call my ship in. I need to analyze this data." "What did you learn?" Yuma asked. "I learned that the galaxy's strongest predator is curious. And that curiosity." Han started walking back to the airlock. "That's something humans know very well. After all, it's what kept us alive on Earth." As his ship docked with the station, Han looked at the blood on his arm. "Round 1 complete," he muttered. "Now the real hunt begins." Han sat in the research lab, watching the video of his encounter with the Shadow Hunter for the 20th time. Park Yuma stood beside him, making notes on her tablet. His arm was now bandaged, but he barely noticed the pain. "Stop there," Han said, freezing the video. "Look at its eyes. See how they change color slightly before it attacks." Yuna leaned closer to the screen. "You're right. The red gets brighter. I've never noticed that before." She looked at Han with new respect. Most people don't survive long enough to notice details like that. "On Earth, we had a snake called the rattlesnake," Han said. "Before it struck, it would give a warning. Not out of kindness, but because it didn't want to waste venom on something it couldn't eat. You think the Shadow Hunter is giving warning signals. I think it's choosing its fights carefully. Look." Han played another clip from the space station. "See how it pulls back here. It could have struck, but it didn't." Yuna's eyes widened. "It's studying us, just like we're studying it." The lab door opened, and Kim Duha walked in. He looked tired. 3 more colonies have gone dark. "The council is getting impatient, Han." "Good thing I figured out its hunting pattern then." Han stood up and walked to a large star map. "It's not random. The Shadow Hunter is moving in a spiral, testing different types of colonies, different defense systems." He pointed to several spots on the map. These colonies were heavily defended. These had natural barriers. These had experimental weapons. It's learning about everything we can throw at it. "Like a student taking a test," Yuna said quietly. "Exactly." Han turned to Kim. "Tell the council I know where it's going next, but I need something from them first." Kim raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Access to Earth's restricted wildlife files, the really old ones, from before we joined the Galactic Council." Yuna looked confused. "What do Earth animals have to do with the Shadow Hunter?" Han played the encounter video again. "Watch how it moves. The way it thinks. It reminds me of something, but I need to be sure." He pointed to the screen. "See how it uses the station's structure, how it creates traps. Earth had predators that did the same thing." "Had?" Kim asked. "What happened to them?" "We happened." Han's face was serious. "Humans weren't the strongest or fastest, but we studied our predators, learned their habits, their weaknesses, and eventually we learned how to beat them." Yuna suddenly understood. "You're not just hunting the Shadow Hunter. You're doing a full predator analysis, like your ancestors did." "The council wants me to kill it," Han said. "But first, I need to understand it. Every predator has patterns, needs, things it can't ignore. He touched his bandaged arm. Even this wound tells us something. It could have cut much deeper, but it didn't. It was testing my speed, my reaction. Testing its prey, Kim said, like Earth's predators did. No, Han shook his head. Like Earth's predators did when they met another predator. It doesn't see me as prey. It sees me as competition. Yuna quickly typed on her tablet. That's why it left instead of finishing the attack. It recognized you as another apex predator. Which means it will come back, Han said, not to hunt me, but to learn more about me. And that's exactly what I want. Kim looked worried. You're going to let it hunt you? Han smiled. No, I'm going to teach it something that Earth's predators learned the hard way. He pulled up an old Earth video showing ancient humans hunting with simple tools. Sometimes the most dangerous prey is the one that looks weakest. The Council won't like this plan, Kim warned. The Council doesn't understand predators, Han said. But I do. And so does our friend. He marked a spot on the star map. It will be here in 3 days. And this time, I'll be ready with a lesson from Earth's history. Yuna looked at the map, then at Han. What lesson? That humans didn't become Earth's apex predators by being the strongest. Han's eyes were focused on the Shadowhunter's image. We did it by being the most patient, the most adaptable, and the most willing to learn from our enemies. As they worked through the night, analyzing data and making plans, Han couldn't help but smile. The Shadowhunter was about to learn why humans were the only species to master their Deathworld. Not through strength or speed, but through something far more dangerous: understanding. The medical bay's lights were too bright. Han lay on the bed, his chest wrapped in bandages. The pain medication made his thoughts fuzzy, but he couldn't stop thinking about what went wrong. Park Yuna sat beside his bed, looking at the damage reports on her tablet. 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and deep cuts across your chest. She shook her head. You're lucky to be alive. Luck had nothing to do with it, Han said quietly. It let me live. The door slid open, and Kim Do-ha walked in. His face was dark with worry. The Council is meeting right now. They're saying we should try nuclear weapons next. Han tried to sit up, wincing at the pain. No, that would be a mistake. You nearly died, Yuna said. The Shadowhunter was waiting for you. It knew your plan. Of course it did. Han managed a small smile. Because it's learning. Just like we are. The medical bay's screen showed footage from the failed attempt. Han had set up a trap on an abandoned mining platform. He had studied Earth's old hunting techniques, the ways humans once trapped larger predators. But the Shadowhunter had been one step ahead. Tell me what you see, Han said, pointing at the screen. Yuna and Kim watched as the footage played. The Shadowhunter had appeared exactly where Han predicted, but instead of falling into his trap, it had sprung 3 of its own. It used your own strategy against you, Kim said. How is that possible? Because it remembers, Han said. Every encounter, every tactic we use, it doesn't just learn. It improves on what it learns. He touched his bandaged chest, but it made one mistake. A mistake. Yuna looked skeptical. It nearly killed you. Nearly. But it didn't. Han's eyes were bright despite his pain. When it had me down, when it could have finished me easily, it did something interesting. It taught me a lesson instead. The screen showed the final moments of the encounter. The Shadowhunter had pinned Han down, its claws ready for a killing blow. But instead of striking, it had made a sound, a low, complex series of clicks and growls. It was talking to you, Kim asked in disbelief. Not exactly, but it was communicating. Han pointed to his injuries. These cuts are precise. It wasn't trying to kill me. It was showing me what it could do, teaching me respect. Yuna suddenly looked excited. She pulled up her research notes, like dominant wolves teaching young pack members their place, or like how big cats train their cubs. Exactly. Han tried to sit up again, this time succeeding. Earth's predators don't just kill. They teach. They establish hierarchies. And that's what the Shadowhunter was doing. But why? Kim asked. Why not just kill you like all the others? Because I'm different. Han played the footage again. Look at how I moved, how I fought back. It recognized something in me, the same thing I recognized in it. We're both apex predators. Yuna was typing rapidly on her tablet. So when it injured you, it was establishing dominance, Han finished. Like an alpha wolf putting a younger wolf in its place, which means it sees you as its own kind, Kim said slowly, not as prey. Han nodded. And that's exactly what I wanted. He reached for a water bottle, his hand shaking slightly. On Earth, when our ancestors first started hunting big predators, they didn't just study their strengths. They studied their social behavior, their hierarchies, their rules. The Council won't understand this, Kim warned. They want results, not anthropology lessons. Tell them I learned something valuable today. Han lay back on the bed, tired but satisfied. Tell them I learned that the galaxy's deadliest predator follows rules, has a code. And that means it can be predicted, Yuna finished, understanding filling her eyes. Better than that. Han closed his eyes, already planning his next move. It means it can be outsmarted, because that's what humans do best. We take our failures, learn from them, and come back smarter. As his friends left him to rest, Han touched his bandages again. The Shadowhunter had taught him a harsh lesson today. But that was okay, because now he knew something crucial. It wasn't just a mindless killer. It was an intelligent being following ancient predator rules. Rules that humans had spent thousands of years learning to understand. And understanding, Han knew, was the first step to victory. The Galactic Council chamber was silent as Han-Ta stood at the podium. His chest still hurt from his wounds, but he stood straight. Behind him, a large screen showed images from Earth's history. You want to know why I failed? Han asked the Council. I failed because I was thinking like you, trying to be the strongest, the fastest, the most powerful. He pointed to the screen. But that's not how humans survived Earth. The screen showed ancient cave paintings, simple stick figures chasing animals much bigger than themselves. These are from Earth's early days, Han explained, when we were still learning how to hunt. Look at the size difference. The prey was always bigger, stronger, faster. Park Yuna stepped forward, adding her scientific data to the presentation. Human bodies are actually quite weak compared to Earth's other predators. No natural weapons, no armor, not particularly fast. So how did we survive? Kim Do-ha asked from his seat. Han smiled. We cheated. The council members murmured in confusion. Han changed the image to show ancient humans hunting a mammoth. See this hunt? The mammoth could kill any of these humans with one step. But they didn't try to overpower it. Instead, they followed it for days, walking, watching, waiting. I don't understand, said one council member. Why not just attack? Because humans had something special, Han said. Not strength, not speed. We had endurance, the ability to keep going when everything else had to rest. The screen changed again, showing thermal images of various Earth animals. Every creature has to rest, has to cool down, has to sleep. But humans, Han pointed to the human thermal image. We evolved to keep going, to outlast our prey. Yuna stepped forward again. It's called persistence hunting. Humans would follow their prey for days, never letting it properly rest. Eventually, even the strongest animal would collapse from exhaustion. That's your plan? Asked another council member. To make the Shadowhunter tired. No, Han said. My plan is to do what humans do best. Adapt. He touched his healing wounds. The Shadowhunter is stronger than me, faster than me, but it thinks like a normal predator. Attack. Rest. Attack again. He pulled up the data from his failed attempt. Look at its pattern. It attacks in bursts. Violent, powerful strikes. Then it needs time to recover, just like Earth's predators. But you said it's learning, Kim pointed out. Adapting. Yes, Han agreed. But it can't change what it is, a predator that relies on power, on quick kills. He smiled. It hasn't learned about human stamina yet, about our ability to just keep going. The screen showed new images, human marathoners, mountain climbers, swimmers crossing oceans. This is humanity's real strength, not in single battles, but in long campaigns, not in power, but in persistence. You want to wear it down? Yuna asked, understanding filling her eyes. I want to teach it something it's never learned before. Han's voice was firm. That sometimes the strongest hunter isn't the one who hits hardest. It's the one who can take a hit and keep coming back. He turned to the council. The shadow hunter thinks it taught me a lesson with these wounds. But humans, we've been learning lessons from stronger predators for our entire history, and we've outlasted them all. The council leader's crystals flickered. What do you need? Time, Han said simply, and permission to do this my way. No more traps, no more weapons, just the oldest human hunting technique there is. You're going to follow it, Kim said, through space. I'm going to show it what human persistence really means. Han's eyes were determined. It thinks it's the perfect predator because it's the strongest. But Earth taught us something different. The perfect predator isn't the strongest. What is it then? Asked a council member. It's the one who never, ever gives up. Han looked at his healing wounds again. The shadow hunter is about to learn why humans survived Earth. Not because we were the best fighters, but because we were the ones who always got back up, no matter how many times we were knocked down. As the council members discussed his plan, Han looked at the ancient cave paintings again. His ancestors had faced creatures just as terrifying as the shadow hunter. They had survived through patience, persistence, and the willingness to learn from every failure. Now it was his turn to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its muscles or its weapons. It was in its unbreakable will to keep going, no matter what. Day after day, Han followed the shadow hunter's trail through space. His small ship wasn't as fast as the creature, but he didn't need to be fast. He just needed to be constant. Another energy signature. Park Yuna's voice came through his comm. She was tracking both Han and the shadow hunter from a safe distance. It's trying to rest on that abandoned station. Not today, Han said quietly. He pushed his ship forward, its engines humming steadily. As he approached the station, his sensors picked up movement. The shadow hunter was already leaving, forced to move again before it could fully recover. That's the third time in 2 days. Kim Duha noted. It's starting to show signs of stress. Han nodded, though they couldn't see him. Just like Earth's animals did. No matter how strong they were, they all needed rest. But humans. He checked his ship's systems. We learned to go without sleep. To push through exhaustion. To keep moving when everything in our bodies screamed to stop. The hunt had been going on for a week now. Every time the shadow hunter tried to rest, Han would appear. Not attacking, just being there. A constant presence that couldn't be ignored. Its energy readings are changing, Yuna reported. The pattern is becoming erratic, just like you predicted. Han remembered the old videos of persistence hunting. How the prey would start strong, running fast and far. But slowly, hour by hour, day by day, it would weaken. Not from wounds or attacks, but from the simple, terrible fact that it couldn't rest while being followed. Look. Kim's voice was excited. It's changing direction, moving toward that asteroid field. It's getting desperate, Han said, trying to lose us in the rocks. He adjusted his course, following the energy trail. But that's okay. We can wait. The asteroids were dangerous. Han's ship had to move carefully, watching for collisions. But he kept going, kept following. just like his ancestors had followed their prey through valleys and forests, never letting it escape. Han. Yuna's voice was worried. Your ship's power is running low. You need to stop and recharge. Not yet. Han's voice was tired but determined. I have backup systems. The Shadowhunter is close to breaking. I can feel it. Hours passed. The asteroid field thinned out. And there, floating in the darkness of space, was the Shadowhunter. It wasn't moving smoothly anymore. Its movements were jerky, unstable. Its body temperature is dropping, Yuna reported. Energy levels at 60% of normal. Han, I think it's working. The creature turned to face Han's ship. Its red eyes weren't as bright now. It had been running for days, unable to rest, unable to recover, just like the prey that ancient humans had hunted. Now comes the hard part, Han said. He opened his ship's airlock and put on his spacesuit. Time to finish this hunt the old way. You're going out there? Kim asked in disbelief. It's still dangerous. Of course it is. Han checked his suit's systems. But this isn't about fighting anymore. This is about understanding. About respect. He stepped into space, using his suit's thrusters to move closer to the Shadowhunter. The creature watched him come, too tired to flee again. You've learned about strength, Han said, though only his friends could hear him through the comm. Now learn about endurance. The Shadowhunter moved toward him, but not to attack. Its movements were different now. Slower, more careful. It had learned something that every Earth predator had learned when facing humans, that sometimes the quiet ones, the persistent ones, were the most dangerous of all. That's right, Han said softly. You're not the only one who can teach lessons. As he floated in space, facing the galaxy's deadliest predator, Han felt a deep connection to his ancestors. They too had faced stronger, faster creatures. They too had won not through power, but through the simple, unstoppable human trait of never giving up. The hunt was nearly over, but its most important lesson was just beginning. The Galactic Council chamber was packed. Every species wanted to see the human who had done the impossible. Han Ta stood calmly at the center, still wearing his simple cargo pilot's uniform. Beside him, in a specially built containment field, floated the Shadowhunter. But it wasn't trying to escape. Instead, it watched Han with those intelligent red eyes, now filled with something new. Respect. Tell us, the council leader's crystals flickered. How did it end? Han looked at the Shadowhunter, remembering that final moment in space. It ended the way all great hunts should end, with understanding. Park Yuna stepped forward, holding her research tablet. After 8 days of continuous pursuit, the Shadowhunter's energy levels had dropped to critical levels. But instead of collapsing, it did something unprecedented. The main screen showed the recording. The exhausted Shadowhunter, floating in space, had turned to face Han. But instead of attacking, it had changed its color. Its black scales had shifted, showing patterns that Yuna now recognized as a sign of submission in many Earth species. It surrendered, a council member asked in disbelief. No, Han said. It acknowledged me as an equal. Another apex predator. He smiled slightly. And then it did something even more interesting. It wanted to learn. Kim Do-ha brought up another recording. The Shadowhunter, after 8 days of being hunted, had mimicked Han's persistence hunting technique in a small way. It had followed Han's ship back to the council station, keeping a steady pace, showing it understood the lesson. The galaxy's strongest predator learned from a human. Another council member sounded shocked. Strength isn't everything, Han said. He walked closer to the containment field. The Shadowhunter moved with him, matching his pace. Earth taught us that. Every creature has something to teach, something to learn. But what about the colonies? Someone shouted. The people it killed. Han's face grew serious. Those can't be brought back. But look. He pointed to the screen, which now showed the Shadowhunter's current readings. Its hunting patterns have changed. It's learned to control its power, to think before striking. Like Earth's predators learned to do, Yuna added. When faced with humans who could outlast them, many predators developed new hunting strategies, more efficient, less wasteful. The shadow hunter made a low sound, a complex series of clicks and growls. To everyone's surprise, Han answered with similar sounds. You've learned to communicate with it? Kim asked, amazed. Not exactly, Han said. But we understand each other, predator to predator. He turned to the council. It doesn't need to be destroyed. It needs to be understood, just like humans needed to be understood when we first joined the galaxy. The council leader's crystals pulsed thoughtfully. And what would you suggest we do with it? Learn from it, Han said simply, and let it learn from us. Earth's history shows that when predators learn to coexist, everyone benefits. The shadow hunter moved in its containment field, matching Han's position exactly. It was no longer the mindless killer that had terrorized the galaxy. It had learned something that Earth's predators had learned long ago, that adaptation and intelligence were more valuable than raw power. The reward, the council leader began, but Han held up his hand. Keep it, he said. Put it toward studying the shadow hunter, toward understanding other species we think are just monsters. He looked around the chamber. Earth taught us that every creature, no matter how dangerous, has something to teach us, if we're willing to learn. As the council members discussed among themselves, Park Yuna stepped close to Han. You knew this would happen, didn't you? From the beginning. Han watched the shadow hunter copy his relaxed stance. I hoped. Earth's history is full of predators that became partners once they learned to respect each other. And now, Kim asked, what happens next? Now, Han said, we do what humans do best. We learn, we adapt, and we teach others to do the same. He smiled at the shadow hunter. After all, that's how we survived Earth. Not by being the strongest, but by being the ones willing to learn from everything around us. The shadow hunter's eyes glowed softly, no longer with the fierce red of a killer, but with the steady light of intelligence. It had learned humanity's greatest lesson, that true strength lies not in power, but in the wisdom to know when not to use it. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.